Today we're actually going to get started with code with the Elasticsearch and Serialog. And this is the second video in the series. If you want to go back and look at the first video for actually setting up your environment to run, go for it. Otherwise, we can just go ahead and start from here. To save y'all some time, I went ahead and I created a GitHub, github.com/cmbyerly/demo elastic blazor. And what this is a demo, the demo project for you to be able to clone if you need it. And so it should have everything that we start with and where we're going to end up. So in order to start, you're going to go ahead, if you want to follow along, I've set up an initial directory. And the initial directory will have just the base project, and then everything fully configured and set up after my code examples will be in the logging directory. And so, here's the list of libraries. I'll go ahead and I'll post a link to this in the video description. Okay, this first thing we're going to talk about is Serialog. Now, this is not a full-blown Serialog course. I'll probably do one in the future for Serialog, or as of right now, there are a lot of other resources out there in order to get started. So what I'm going to do is give you a rough overview of it, and then we're going to get started with code. Okay? All right, so the first thing to know is that it is just a logging framework for .NET or .NET Core. It has things called syncs. Syncs really are where you record logs. So you can go to console, or you can send your stuff text files, or the Elk stack, or a number of other places. It's up to you, and it's fully configurable within code. The other thing to keep in mind are enrichers. All right, so enrichers, what they do is they grab other items to include with the logs. So you can enrich your logs with process information, application name, exception info. We have a whole series that I put together at work. Unfortunately, I can't share those here. But you can enrich your process so when you're writing, that'll include this, or you can also write your own. So that's it for Serialog. Now that you clone the repo from my GitHub into here, let's go ahead and let's go into the initial directory, demo elastic blazor, and you'll see a solution file here. Just double click it, and this will open Visual Studio if you have it installed. Okay, and then you'll see here, this is just really a Blazor project. And I'll get more to the Blazor a little bit later, but not right now. But the first thing we're going to do is we want to start logging to the back end. So what we're going to do is need to install the Serilog libraries for talking with Elasticsearch first, okay? So if you right-click on the server and go to Manage NuGet Packages, and go to Browse. All right. So first thing we're going to need to install is Elasticsearch.net. And I'll probably speed through this area of the video. And then after that will be Nest. And then I always like to use newtonsoft.json. I don't think it's going to be a requirement, but do it anyway. And then you're going to want to put in Serilog. And then Serilog ASP.NET Core. Serialog extensions logging this is .NET Core. So what Serialog extensions logging does is it allows us to log through the regular logger that's included with .NET Core, just your Microsoft logging. And then we're going to add a sync here. Is going to be Serialog syncs Elasticsearch. Okay. All right. Then now you can see that all our libraries are installed, so you can just close this out. All right, and then now what we're going to need to do is we're going to go ahead and configure this in Program CS. Normally, you can configure all of this from app settings, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you in code, okay? All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is in app settings JSON, we need to go ahead and we need to add the URL. So I'm going to go ahead and create one. I'm going to call it Elastic. All right. So, and it's going to be http://localhost 9200. And that's where you're going to be logging if you set everything up like the way I had it previously. So if we close that out. Next thing up, in program, there's no access to the configuration for the configuration file. So what we're going to do right quick is come out here, and we're going to add iConfiguration and current directory. Can't get current directory. Make sure to include system IO, and then that's going to allow us access to the app settings.json. And then next up, we're going to put in the Elasticsearch URL. Okay. And so I'm just going to grab it from the configuration, call it Elastic, like we do have it right here. All right. And then now we're actually going to need to create the logger. And I've already pre-typed all this code out. That's the reason I'm just copying and pasting from my notepad here. All right. So just kind of explanation of what all this is. All right. Okay. So what we're doing here now, we're saying Serialog logger, this new logging configuration. All right. So we're going to enrich in the log context, and that's going to be your enricher that you can use. All right. So minimum level. I'm going to go ahead and change this to debug. Okay, so this is going to grab everything. So when you log into your backend in production, though, you'll probably want to keep all your settings in a separate app settings JSON for your environment. Okay, so when you're in development, debug is fine. It's going to grab everything. But once you get further up into your production systems, you're not going to want to log debug. You're going to want to log information or warning only. And the reason why is because debug is going to generate a lot of logs. And so what's going to end up happening is that we're not we just don't want to do that. All right, and so then we have a couple of write tos here. These are actually when we were talking about the syncs. We're going to write to debug, and then we're also going to write to console, which is going to write out to our console, and then we're also going to write to Elasticsearch. All right, so when we write to Elasticsearch, we're going to provide this thing called Elasticsearch sync options, which is going to be this URI that we got up here earlier. All right, and the next thing you would do is say auto-register template. We're always going to say true because we don't have a record of it there. The next thing we want to do is auto-register template version. If you're following my directions, this is going to be Elasticsearch version 7. And then I think there may be an 8 out in the future, but not right now. So right now, ESV 7. And then we're going to have an index format, all right? And so what index formats we're going to say is this is the index format that we're going to do. So we're going to say server log dash, and then we're going to say date time now, and then we're going to provide it in the year, four character year, two digit month, 2-digit day. And so when it writes the login, you'll see server log dash, and today would be September 27th. So you'll see 2020 0927. And so you'll see it in there. I'll show you that. And dot create logger. Then finally in here, what we're going to do is in our web builder, we're just going to come down here and we're going to say, we're going to move this down one line and we're going to insert use Serialog. Okay. And then once we do that, let's go over here to startup. All right, and because I don't want to create any special logging because normally you can do like Serilog.log and log directly to Serialog. You don't have to do this, But if you've already using some of the Microsoft logging, it may just makes life easier. Okay. So we're going to come in here to the services area, and we're going to say services.addLogging. So what this does is this is going to add to our logging. So if we come in here to like controllers, for example, we look at weather forecast, we can already see that iLogger is already set up. So iLogger is already set up. So this allows us to just log it directly through iLogger. All right. So that's all that's set up. So now our project is actually configured and set up to write to Serialog. So now let's go ahead and I'm going to switch out to that because I just want to run it, show you console. Let's try building the solution. Okay, we can see that everything's built. And now I'm going to come over here to the index management. So you see here we have just the regular APM ones that we saw last time. Regular APMs that we saw last time. So let's go ahead and reload. We still don't have it there. All right. So, but now let's minimize this. So now if we crank this guy up, you can see here now all these debug messages coming out to the console that we had before. And all this information will also go to Serialog. So now we can look at that. We can see fetch data, counter, home. All right. So I'm going to close this for a minute. And now I'm going to come over here to weather forecast. And so what we want to do is let's add a couple of log messages. So we've got logger here already set up. All right. So now let's just say logger.log information. You just provide a string. Rebuild. Now let's go ahead and let's start this again. See here that it's starting to write it. Okay. Now if we come over here to fetch data, it did log it, and so we'll probably see it somewhere in the log. It'll be here somewhere in the log, but since we're logging debug, there's a lot of stuff here. Here we go. Information about to get weather forecast. So when we logged it, it wrote it directly out to the console. And now, if we come over to Cabana, which is the UI, hit reload, and now we can see Serialog 2020-0927, like we configured it for. Now there's a document count here of 192 and a storage size. But if you click it here, you can see all the information that's included with it. Pretty nifty, huh? And mappings, stats, and edit settings. All right, so we're going to go ahead and leave this alone. So, but now we still can't see this guy and discover yet. So what we're going to end up doing is coming out here to stack management, then go over to, then after that we'll come into index patterns. All right, so actually I did have one set up here, but let's go ahead and let's delete this guy. Okay, so we're going to create a new index pattern. All right, so for Serialog, we're just going to say Serialog asterisk. And the reason why you're going to do Serialog asterisk, because tomorrow, if you crank this up, the date on this will change. So what we want to do is be able to look through all of them. So you're going to go ahead and do that. Let's hit next step. And then set your time field on the timestamp. And then we're going to create the index pattern. Okay, so these are all our fields in here. All right, so what this is going to allow us to do is view this through the discovery panel. So if we come over here now to discover, and from the drop down here, we can say Serialog. And so you see all the logs here. All right. All right. So we can expand these and you can see all the logging information, application JSON, that quest path. We can also add a bunch of other things, such as level. And this will include the level information. So whether this was a information, debug, warning, error, but we don't have any errors. So it's going to be information and debug mostly. And we can also just include the message here. So this makes things a little bit easier to read instead of trying to parse every one of them. We can do that, and then you can come here and you can filter out. So let's say that we want to filter out all our debugging, so you can filter that out. You only have information. If you will just filter for debug, you can filter for that. And you can still click the little expander here and go in, and you can take a look here. So this actually shows you all our logs that we're getting. And you can see here the count over time as everything's coming in. Yeah, that's about it. So, okay, so for this project, what I've showed you is how to install the libraries, configure it for your project, and how to get everything spun up. And then we had our project connecting in no time. So anyway, so in the next video, I'll go ahead and we're going to show writing to indexes manually within your program if you're not wanting to go through the logger. So until next time.